Ladies and gentlemen, the following is another fantastic episode of the Wrestling Fans Podcast, Ringside Society. I am your host, that ocean crossing, straight up bossing, flight catching, shot glass snatching, always positive, life is great, repping 592, living in the 718, no cap, straight facts, the worldwide starboy, Remy Blue. And our special guest tonight is a man who we actually have the honor of gracing our show. That's right. This man has faced people like Kevin Steen, Vic Capri, and even the hardcore legend, Tommy Dreamer. He is former two-time AAW heavyweight champion, former AAW tag team champion, the New World Man, Shane Hollister. How you doing today, sir?
Man, I'm good, dude. That intro was pretty freaking fantastic. I mean, I don't know. That was awesome. I think you left one out though. You left out the Heritage Champion as well. So basically, I am one of the few triple crowns in AAW.
Wow. I gotta say, Shane, man, I saw your matches. I saw the one you had with Lewis. Is it Lewis Linden? I saw that match you had with him, and I saw the one you had with Kevin Steen. And the Dwayne, my teenage inspiration, Dwayne Johnson, I guess his spirit channeled into me and said, why in the blue hell is this man not signed? Like, pray tell, can somebody explain it to me? Because the stuff you did in those matches, I said to myself, I'll tell you what, man, in another lifetime, in another dimension somewhere, Kenny Omega would have said him and the Young Bucks were were the best trio on the planet. And then Tyler Black, Marek Brave, and Shane Hollister would have actually came out and challenged that statement.
That would have been pretty dang close to the truth, man. At that time, like we were inseparable at one point. But yeah, to answer your question about the unsigned thing, I guess I had a lot of bad luck when it comes to wrestling injuries. At the wrong time. The very first Evolve show I was supposed to be on, and I broke the tibia and fibula in my left leg. So I have a steel plate and 10 screws in my leg, and I was never, well, I guess I was supposed to be on the first show and then never invited back. So I never got the invite back after being injured, which is kind of sucks, but it happens. And then a lot of times where I'm steamrolling and on a good track or things are just going well. Again, I fractured my ankle, my right ankle, when I was getting in great shape. Even after I lost the AEW heavyweight championship to the great Eddie Kingston, I got in the best shape of my whole life and then fractured my right ankle. So it's just been like kind of some bad luck. But I don't know, man. I feel really good about this time around. I feel really, really good about really pushing this time around.
But I'll tell you what, man, I'm rooting for you and I'm rooting for Marek. And I tell you, if I see y'all on AEW, especially if I see y'all get signed, I don't care whether it's at work. I don't care whether it's at home. I don't care if my mama sees me right now and she's gonna look at me all crazy like, boy, what is your problem? I'm gonna be like probably screaming like, yo, they did it. Yes, they up here. Finally, the eye guys,
Right.
They're getting that exposure. And I'm really hoping it happens for y'all, man. I'm really hoping that it happens for, you and even Marek, man, because one thing I like to see is our people that were like friends, like all of a sudden just, rise together. And one such story, two such stories that come to mind are, of course, now modern day, Zach. Look at me calling him man, Zack Ryder, Matt Cardona, and Brian Myers, two men that
Yeah.
literally met each other as teenagers, and now they rose to the top. They even had their own WrestleMania moment together. And then there's also another old school tag team that didn't have much success as a tag team, but once they parted ways, they both became household names. I'm talking about the Blade Runners, Rock and I forgot what his name, but they eventually became the Ultimate Warrior and Sting.
Yep. And Sting, yeah. The Blade Runners, yeah.
So I love to see stories like that, and I'm definitely hoping it happens for y'all. And
It's again, Merrick Brave, just a crazy happenstance, was, getting ready to get signed to Ring of Honor and almost gets paralyzed. I'm sure that story was told, but yeah, I guess we just had a lot of bad luck, like when it came to stuff like that. But I mean, I don't know. We're both. I mean, he's killing it in the gym, man. He's in great shape right now. He looks like he's, amped and ready to go all the time, which is awesome. So I don't know. It's just one of those things that right now it just feels good, and it's I'm happy. You know what I mean? For a long time, there were times where I just walked around with a chip on my shoulder because of stuff like that, injuries, and not feeling like I was getting what I was deserved. When wrestling owes nobody anything, you have to bust your ass and put it first, and then maybe something will happen. But realistically, when I say maybe, it's like, well, are you putting it first? Are you really busting ass? Because if you are, it can become a dream come true. Obviously, one of my best friends is a prime example, who legit was laughed at in high school when he told them he was going to be a WWE superstar. Like, look at him now. He's multi-millionaire. He's married to another WWE superstar. Like, come on, man. He's living the life.
yeah, man, yeah, that's really awesome. And the fact that he actually comes back and still talks to you, because they got some people. Let's be honest, you and I both know there's some people that when they get to a certain status, they grow apart. They don't check for their friends. They're too in for their. Life happens. But the fact that the three of you, Marek and Seth, were actually able to, you know, keep that friendship strong
Yeah.
to this day. All the success, each of you have your own lives. That is very admirable. And that those the best friendship is the friendship where, no matter where you are, no matter whether it's, even an ocean apart, continents apart, y'all could still keep that friendship strong. And still whenever you guys meet up, you could still pick up where you left off with no hurdles and whatsoever.
Yeah, man, it's just crazy because I thought, all right, so the other day I was getting off of the shoot, um, getting ready to walk into a grocery store, and usually me going into a grocery store, I'm one of those people who just kind of just want to avoid having conversation with a lot of people.
Right.
So I had my earbuds in, and I saw him and Becky walking into Hy-Vee, which is a local grocery store. And I
Mhm.
was like, you guys walking in together, like you're gonna bring so much attention to yourselves. So, and like I'm walking right behind him, and I wasn't gonna bother him because I mean, I know he's got stuff going on, and he just turned around, realized he didn't grab a cart, and then saw me. So it was a short conversation just because I know I was in a rush, probably more than he was, and I didn't want to be like one of those guys. Like I didn't want to bring even more attention to him because we're just sitting there talking right when you walk into like the sliding glass doors that just open for you,
Yeah.
or you know what I mean. So like I didn't want to bring more attention to them than they already have. You know what I mean? So I was just, I'm just gonna get going. But it was one of those things where yeah, we hadn't seen each other in a bit because like, well, when I get a chance to go down to the gym, the Black and the Brave Wrestling Academy, most of the time he's already gone, or he hadn't been there yet, or just timing. But yeah, it was just a happenstance that we ran into each other at a grocery store, and I was the one who was shorter with him because I don't know if it was me in a rush or at the same time not trying to want to bring attention to him that he's already going to get anyway. So one of those things.
Right, right. Yeah. So I so let's take a time traveling trip back in the past, man. So how did your love for professional wrestling start? What was the main event or match that you saw that got you hooked? or who was that one relative that you saw was watching wrestling, and all of a sudden your curiosity was piqued?
All right, so I didn't actually meet my biological father until I was about probably 4 or 5, and from there we started watching pro wrestling together with my two other brothers. Um, and then I just fell in love with it. Like I fell in love with it. But really, when I truly fell in love with it, I've told this story a bunch of times, and my brother gets so mad. And he's like, "Why do you keep telling that story?" I was like, "Because it's true, man. Like that's what made me want to do this." So the story is WrestleMania 12 is my brother's birthday party. My dad put together for him. So um, we're watching it. His second favorite wrestler is Diesel, loses to Taker, obviously, because Taker didn't lose till way later on. And then his number one favorite wrestler of all time, Bret Hart, versus my favorite wrestler, Shawn Michaels. The time runs out. Obviously, we know the story. Shawn wins, and my brother starts crying at his birthday party. And then for some reason, when I tell people like that's what made me want to do this, I'm like, I sound like an asshole, but to provoke that much emotion, even on somebody's birthday, is amazing. It's captivating. So yeah, that's what made me want to do this.
Wow, you started watching during the New Generation era, which a year later would give way to the Attitude Era.
Yes,
Wow.
yes.
You joined at the right time, actually. One of the
Well, I
right.
mean, it was. I mean, yeah. I mean, relatively. You know what I mean. I was a part of. I guess it wasn't the golden age. You know what I mean. Like the '80s wrestling, I did go back and watch when my dad would take us to the video store. Like I felt like I wanted to watch like history of older stuff. There were times where I was renting like Starcade, like the old NWA Starcades and stuff like that, and then like the older Royal Rumbles. Like I felt like I wanted to watch these characters that I'm watching now, but like learn about them from before. So it was like the same with music with me too. So like my dad introduced me to like 80s music and stuff, but obviously I evolved from there. So it's the same thing. Like I grew up in the 90s, watched 90s wrestling, but I also would go back and watch old 80s wrestling just to feel like, okay, I want to see where a lot of this, got some of its start and why these guys are huge stars as I'm watching them. And like Ric Flair is my dad's favorite. And I wanted to know why Ric Flair was my dad's favorite. So, yeah, I mean, I grew up and watched wrestling going right into the biggest stage it's ever been in, which was crazy to watch actually.
Wow, that's pretty awesome, man. I tell you, Ric Flair, man. When I was younger, I couldn't stand Ric Flair, but now looking back,
Same
I'm
here.
like, he was the man, like that, like man,
Dude,
that was. Whew. Ric Flair
without
was that
Ric Flair, honestly, without Ric Flair, there would have been no Sting. Because
guy,
Ric
right?
Flair made Sting. Ric Flair made that man. And like Sting obviously being who Sting is, became so great in the ring, getting to work with the best. You know what I mean? Like there's to me, there are two best of all time, Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair. Best of all time.
Yeah, there's never been such. There's some people that you can look at. I'm realizing now that there's certain people they've never really had a bad match. I mean, you look at Shawn Michaels, never a bad match, and even in the Rockers, one of my first ever favorite tag team, no bad matches. And then Ric Flair was another one too, crisp as ever. And I even found this out about Daniel Bryan. He was another one too, no bad matches. Like these men were
Yeah,
just
it's
crisp
impossible.
as
I've watched that guy again. If we jump into wrestling when it's exploding, Ring of Honor was exploding, and me and Seth and Merrick were all, we were there watching it when it was blowing up. Like Ring of Honor was becoming huge. And now all of these today stars that are everybody's like, they look at it and go, wow, that is the man. That is the guy. We knew back in the day that Brian Danielson was the guy, the man.
Oh,
And it just his some of his stuff with his matches with like AJ Styles and like Christopher Daniels and like just those matches like will stand the test of time. If you get your hands on an old Ring of Honor DVD and just watch those guys bust their ass and just build a company that has become nationally known now. Like it's amazing. It's super, super awesome. And I felt like I was a part of it watching it and going to the Chicago shows when I started doing Chicago shows and, watching CM Punk become this massive star was just really exciting.
yeah, man. Yeah, Ring of Honor back then in 2000s. I've seen certain clips. I'm like, man, like they were just like wrestling secret weapon that unless you were like a hardcore wrestling fan and you love the indies, you wouldn't have known about. You wouldn't known about them. They actually Daniel let me call the man Daniel Bryan. Brian Danielson.
Yeah.
And also, well, mostly Brian Danielson was one of the reasons why I sought out Ring of Honor because I was like, this guy's the American Dragon. There's a lot of people like saying, yeah, he's coming to WWE. He's gonna kick a lot of butt. He's gonna do a lot of things. And I was like, let me see what's about this Ring of Honor thing. Let me see about it. And I think one match I saw, the first match I saw with him was, I think it was last match. It was the match with him and the American Wolves. And
Oh yeah.
he was like, I really love being here, but I got bills to pay and I gotta go somewhere else. And he was pretty much saying that he's going to WWE. And I was like, wow, this guy's gonna do great in WWE. And so I said it, so it came to pass. He ended up doing pretty well for himself. Had his own WrestleMania moment and everything.
Yeah, dude. Like here's the thing is if I truly still believe this and WWE's kind of it seems like they're changing their ways on that or their views. I think that if you can make yourself a star on the indies, on the independent level, you become a star that everyone is talking about, you can be a star on television. I truly believe that.
Right.
100%. I mean, yes, you end up learning more in a different way of storytelling once you get to the big leagues. I mean, there's guys who are going to tell you, I mean, like just being I mean, I don't know, man, just being in a locker room with Arn Anderson would have been insane. I mean, like Seth Rollins, down in FCW, getting to work with Dusty Rhodes and people like that. Like you're gonna learn things like the small things that you just sometimes neglect. It gets neglected, and like those small things that if you even like you go back and watch some really old wrestling, and you're like, holy cow, dude! I believed everything that I just seen. I believed every ounce of it. Somebody put up what is it? It's a clip of Terry Funk and Bruiser Brody, and it looked like a fight. It looked real. Like it's like,
Oh,
dude, just stuff like that. I feel like sometimes it gets lost in the mix because of just feeling like it's real easy to lose the attention span of human beings because it's so easy to grab your phone if you're like, well, this is kind of boring. And then just grab your phone. Back in the day when like you went to a wrestling show, there were no cell phones. Your eyes were glued to the screen. So it's like one of those things that it's almost like I wish you could tell everyone that they had to turn their phones off. Like if they go to a movie, hey, you
right.
gotta turn your phone off. Turn it on silent. You can't be holding it up. Like I think that the attention span of the wrestling fan, and then they wouldn't be recording all these videos and putting up stuff for free, nonetheless. Um, but like you would have to go buy those DVDs because of word of mouth. So instead of having matches that are posted completely on YouTube, you'd have to go buy those DVDs because nobody was recording it because they had their phones in their pocket,
Right.
which is, I mean, it's never going to happen. Don't get me wrong. It's, wishful thinking. But when I go to a movie now, it is awesome to think that people just, they have their phones in their pocket and they are looking at the screen. They're captivated by the story or not. Maybe it's a terrible movie, but they're at least in tune with what they're watching. And
Right.
sometimes with wrestling, that can go out the window because it's just so easy for somebody to grab their phone at a wrestling show and just be like, "Well, I'm bored," you know.
Yeah. Yeah, you're definitely right. You're definitely right about that. So now that you're a fan and you have your favorites, you're cheering your favorites, you're booing the bad guys. Were you ever able to go to like any of the wrestling shows when you were younger? When you were younger, like WB, WCW, I don't know, maybe ECW.
I
Uh,
did. I do have a few stories. The one that's the most disappointing. It's disappointing in the sense that I was sick. And I actually told this story down at the Black and the Brave Wrestling Academy instead of in front of some of the students, and Merrick was there too. Uh, was the American Bash where Diamond Dallas Page wrestled Macho Man Randy Savage, and they brawled in the crowd.
mhm.
I was severely sick. I had food poisoning, and I had to leave because, no joke, because of the food poisoning, I crapped my pants in what is now called the Tax Layer Center, then called the Mark. And my dad was like, if you're not feeling well, we'll get out of here. And I felt so bad for my two brothers who wanted to stay and watch the rest of the pay per view. And it was right when Diamond Dallas Page and Macho Man were starting. So it was like I missed this huge thing where they brawled in the crowd in our home arena because I was sick. But yes, it's still one of those cool things that happened, you know, locally for us. And that same day, I actually got to meet Diamond Dallas Page as a kid and got an autograph from him. So that was really cool.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, DDP, man. To me, I always look at that match with him and Randy Savage, and like to me, that was the match that elevated him to world title status. I mean, granted, it wasn't for the
Oh
world
yeah,
title, but that was the match that said, okay, you know something? You're ready to hang with the Savages, the Hogans, the Stings, the Goldbergs, the big stars of that era. And yeah, I'm like his story is another one too. Like to go from manager to wrestler to world champion, now
well, he was
WWE.
a what was he? What was he, like, a rookie at like 35 or 36 years old? Actually training.
Yeah, he had his first
He
match
was
at
a he,
5.
yeah, dude. I'm 35 right now. Like, that's crazy to think about. Like, to have your, I mean, yes, he was in around the business and stuff, but like to have your first, like, well, here's my first real professional wrestling match is wild, and how fast he progressed and caught on and like in tune with the small things. Like, it's awesome. It's like there's those that's like there's few people who can do stuff like that. And like, and yes, you're right. I think him getting to work with one of the very best professional wrestlers ever in Macho Man Randy Savage has it elevate him to another level, and it made him a star. It made him a champion before he even was champion. Yes, I agree with
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that was. I'll never forget that. That was definitely a great match. So now how did your journey go from professional wrestling fan to now professional. Well, no, 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 no. Let me read. Let me dial it back partially. Professional wrestling fan to the new world man Shane Hollister. Like, how did you end up getting to train? And tell us a bit. So, from what I gather, you, Seth, and Marek were friends ever since, like, I take it high school.
you. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Well, it was again wrestling related. We were um instead of because well, I mean, Seth was a backyard wrestler. I was kind of a backyard wrestler, and at one point we all kind of met each other through what would be considered, like, I guess, a homemade wrestling ring in a barn, and
Okay.
we started working for them. And I started, well, not working, obviously, I don't know, whatever, putting on shows. Uh, and then obviously we all became friends, and then from there, like at one point we had a buddy who went and got trained a little bit, and we got our hands on a real ring that is still the same ring that SCW Pro uses to this day, which is crazy to think about that I was bumping in that ring when I was 16 years old. Um, at one point we were learning like the basics of basics, like how to bump, stuff like that. Um, run little tiny spots. We had no idea that there was so much more to it. I mean, we would watch stuff, but I mean, when you're not classically trained, you don't know what you're. I mean, you think you know what you're watching, but a lot of times you don't. You know what I mean? That's why a lot of these fans who, I mean, sometimes they'll get on, websites and crap all over a wrestler. I'm like, yeah, if you've never been in the ring, like, you still, like, to me, I'm like, even the worst trained wrestler, at least I'll be like, well, at least he can bump, but he knows what he's doing. Like, a lot of these people will get, like, just get on the internet and just crap on people. It's like, whatever, just stop. Um, like MGF said, you don't really know shit. So, uh, like, all right, so later on we started going to shows and we're doing camps. So, I don't know how many camps we did at one point. There was a lot. There's a lot of camps. And then at one point, Seth was gonna go train for Ring of Honor with CM Punk with another one of our friends. But that kind of fell through, so that didn't happen. And then he moved back home, and him and Merrick were talking about going to a wrestling school. And I was already a huge fan of Danny Daniels. Um, but I guess Seth and Merrick found out through the grapevine that he was starting a wrestling school. So they were traveling and going up there. I don't know what if it was once a week, all the way to Chicago once a week to train. And then while they were training, they were still doing. I think they eventually within like I don't know maybe a few weeks, a few months, they started doing shows while training. And then eventually it was IWA, and then these bigger companies are getting to notice these guys quick, and it was awesome. So like once that happened, I was like, all right, so here's another time where I'm like, okay, if Danny has another class, I'm going to be in class number 2, and I'm going to be a part of that. So I was still a senior in high school while training to be a pro wrestler, and doing AAW shows, even if they were dark matches or whatever. Put up the ring, tearing down the ring. Did it for a long time. Like, like a lot of days these students don't have a clue what it is to have to like do so much work to get onto a show, because some of them are just it's just so easy to walk into a building that the ring's already put up. They don't have to tear it down. They don't understand the aspect of having to do that every time you trained, like I did, like Merrick did, and like Seth did. Like that is tough. Like to even want to do that, like that's how much you want it. And I think like when people realize that putting a ring together and tearing down a ring, like it builds a certain bond with the ring, I think, as well. I mean, yes, some of the students will have to do it now when they go and they go to a show, but to have to do it every single time you were training, that puts a different perspective on it. And like I don't know, to me I felt like we respected the ring more than a lot of newer students breaking into the wrestling business. Maybe that's just my perspective, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I gotta I'm gonna deviate away. So you mentioned people saying stuff about botching and so on. I always tell
Yeah,
people like, look, I always tell fellow wrestling fans, I'm like, look, how have you ever trained to be a wrestler? Okay, no, you haven't. Okay, so why are you judging? Or they might be like, yeah, I trained to be a wrestler. Okay, well, did you graduate? Oh, you didn't graduate. Okay, so you didn't you went to wrestling school, didn't graduate, but you're judging somebody who graduated, went to wrestling school, graduated, and they're experienced in this. So I just gotta ask you, man. Like, you've been an assistant trainer at the Black and the Brave
yeah.
wrestling school. And fans, I want y'all to listen to this too, because y'all need to hear this. Um, those of you that like to give your little opinions, I'm gonna be a heel for a bit. You know, a little bit of a heel
Awesome.
in my sense.
Awesome.
So
I can't wait.
so I gotta ask you, New World Man, um, Shane Hollister, former two-time AAW heavyweight champion, former AAW Heritage champion, and former AAW tag team champion, tag team specialist in my opinion, you know, and good friend of, great friend of Seth Rollins and Margrave. When can a person, when can a fan, at some point they've gone through wrestling school, decide they're gonna judge somebody else's in-ring work? I would love to. I'm not being sarcastic. I'm just curious because I always say my thing is if you haven't graduated wrestling school and have done and haven't done like a certain amount of matches, you can't say nothing about a person's in-ring work or if they botch something. But what would you say when they can actually start doing that, if they want to do that, if they want to be that person?
I mean, half the time, I think even if I critiqued a match at this long in my career, I feel like, if I walked up to somebody that they would be like, "Well, who the hell are you?" You know what I mean? Like, I feel like, yeah, there are times, but like there are times that I voice my opinion to people that I trust. I'm not gonna get on the internet and blast someone. I think that's so. And not only that, it's like if you love pro wrestling, what you're doing is you're tearing that person down. You're like just I stopped reading threads and stuff because at one point there was a story. Um, it was a match I had with ACH, and it was a really good one. And a lot of the stuff we bounced off each other. It wasn't just all his ideas. Like I came into that match with a ton of ideas, and somebody had the nerve to say that Shane Hollister is good. He can be led. And I'm like, dude, what the? You don't have a clue. Like you have no idea that like majority of that was a lot of my ideas. Like to be led, you have no clue. But again, everyone has a voice on the internet. Everyone has an opinion, and that's the thing where it's like you could completely demolish a professional wrestler who first off we all know the risk to get in that ring. It's dangerous, no
Yeah.
matter what. An accident can happen, and
Oh.
I think a lot of fans who think they're smart marks forget the fact that you're not in there. You're not in that ring. You don't. You may think you know the risk, but you don't. How many times have guys just got break an ankle doing a baseball slide? Like people forget these things, and then like to just degrade and like just basically suck the soul out of a pro wrestler who, if he's doing at this point in independence, if you're doing it because you love it. We're not making, I mean, not all of us, but like some of these guys probably are, but like we're not making a living off this. And we're doing it because we love it. And if you're a fan and you love it, why degrade anyone? Why tear down anyone? Like I just don't get it. Like why not I mean, what is like? Why not just get behind the person and be like, you know what? Hey, man, you made a mistake. Get him next time. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't understand the like constant want to be negative about pro wrestling. And I think that promo that everyone's talking about is true when he said, you call yourself a fan, you say you love this, but yet you degrade people, and then all of a sudden, when they're on top and things are going right, you're on their side. Like, no, no, you're being fake. And you know what? Like being fake is not genuine. I'm not talking about a staged event. I'm talking about you're not being a genuine person. You're a fair weather fan. You're a fair weather fan, and once they're on top, you'll say you're always one of their fans when you weren't. You were downgrading them and talking crap about them and saying that they could be led, which drives me nuts. And that's why I stopped reading anything about what a fan has to say about me. I mean, yes, sometimes there might even be a wrestler who can talk crap about me. I'm like, yeah, okay, let me remember that story and then see if it's even true. So, like, the things about pro wrestling fans and like downgrading pro wrestlers, it's like I think it needs to stop. I know it'll never stop, but like it's something that if you truly love this business, do you want to downgrade people or do you want to build them up and make this business stronger and better?
Yeah, it. I find that's very irritating when some fans seem to think they know everything, and I'm like, nah, don't do that, man. Don't just chill out, relax. I'm that type of fan. I mean, I'm 39 years old, so I came from the old school where, you know, you were grateful to see wrestling. I mean, I grew up in the times when wrestling was on like once or twice a week, and that was it. There was no Monday Night Raw, no Thursday Night SmackDown, no Friday Night Rampage. It was Saturday and Sunday. If you unless you have cable and you ordered pay-per-view, fine, you're lucky. But if not, you
Right.
heard about it from friends at school, or you saw whatever stills that WWE or WCW wanted to show, if they decided
Or
to
an
show.
illegal cable box.
Yeah, well, there you go. Yeah, that too.
That's that is how I accidentally watched my very first ECW pay-per-view.
Woo,
And
that must have been that must
yeah,
have been an
like
experience.
my grandfather was like, "Hey, wrestling's on," because we had. I mean, I'll just say it. Whatever. We were young. Um, he had a legal cable box, and I walked down there, and I just heard this heavy metal. And the first match I saw was Rob Van Dam, and he came out to Pantera, and I was like, "All right." Whoa, my uncle showed me Pantera because I was into Metallica and Slayer, and like I was like, "This is awesome." And then like he cut a like you heard "fuck" on TV for the first time, and a wrestler saying it. You're like, What just happened?" Like in my head, I was like, "This is the coolest thing ever." And like I my grandmother, she was oh man, she's she knew I was a huge wrestling fan, so I was one of those kids lucky enough that I walked into Spencer's in the mall or whatever, and they had an ECW Extreme Revolution shirt. So I was one of the only kids walking around with an ECW shirt in junior high school, which was awesome because I had all the bragging rights in the world.
Yeah, I'll never forget the first time I saw ECW. It was a four-way match. It was Too Cold Scorpio, Shane Douglas. That was also Chris Jericho on Pitbull number two. And that was my first ever, the first time I ever saw Chris Jericho wrestle at all. I was familiar with Too Cold and I was familiar with Shane Douglas. Pitbull number two was another one that I had just gotten to see too as well. And that match was a great match. And I'll never forget one time my mom came home and this was where I think Taz was fighting somebody. This was when Taz was like a badass. And I think he was fighting Supernova. And before the match, the BWO they do their antics, and Blue Meanie does his little dance. And my mom was like, she knew I liked wrestling, but she was like, "What am I seeing here?" And then she told my aunt, she was like, "Do you know what this
That's
guy was
awesome.
watching? You know what this guy was watching yesterday? He was watching some wrestling, and some big guy with a shirt that was too small for him. She was talking about the Blue Meanie that with a shirt
Yeah.
that was too small for him was dancing around in some Daisy Dukes and he had no butt and he was just shaking around. And I'm just like laughing because I'm like,
Oh
that was the
man.
movie, man. Like, and yeah, she was like in shock at what was being shown on TV. But that was ECW, they pretty much let people be themselves and, you know, in a different light.
Which
Yeah.
to me, without ECW, there would have never been an Attitude Era. They brought that in. Obviously, Vince took it and had to water it down enough for television, but that's what brought in the Attitude Era. Without ECW, it would have never happened.
Oh yeah, definitely wouldn't have. Yeah. So, you've actually, been in numerous tag teams. You've been in stables. Actually, I think you and Seth were in a stable called wait, or it was Chi-Town. One was called Chi-Town Heat, and I forgot the other one, but I know you. rub shoulders with people like Sassy Steffi, Allison Kay, Jessica Havoc, um, and you also formed a tag team called the I Guys. So
Yeah,
how did that come about?
it was like the I Boys actually, and it was kind of sorry, uh, it was kind of thrown together. What wasn't thrown together, but we were doing Eric Cannon's very first wrestling show in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Um, and me and Merrick were, uh, I guess, trying to come up with a name. And I think at one point we were calling ourselves the I Boys because of being from Iowa, and even Trick Davis being from Illinois, we would call ourselves the I Boys. So it's something we ran with, and like that was a tag team that me and Merrick were like, well, let's just call ourselves that. So that's how that kind of happened.
Wow, that's cool. And then of course Marek would actually end up going and forming the Black and the Brave with Seth Rollins, well, as Tyler Black as he was known at the time as well. And I heard because I actually questioned it on Twitter. I was like, because sometimes I tend to like place like this person teamed up, and then their tag team would team up with this other person. I wonder if at one point they all three teamed up, like the Motor City Machine Guns, Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin. Of course, Alex Shelley would go on for a brief point in time to form the Time Splitters with Kushida. And then I was like, I wonder if Kushida and Chris Sabin ever teamed up. And then lo and behold, they actually did for a tournament in Japan. They did pretty well. And at one
Yeah,
point, all three of them teamed up. And that's why I questioned. I was like, I wonder if Shane Hollister, Seth Rollins, and Marek Brave teamed up. And he said, yeah, it was. I think it was like one time. I think at one point,
yeah.
all three of y'all came out. All three. I think I forgot what the name of the song he mentioned. And I was
It
like,
was
wow,
Eddie
that's
Money,
cool.
Take Me Home Tonight.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's it. Which is to this day, it still brings back fond memories. I love that song, anyways. But like, I still think of like the one time where we were all in the ring together and came out to that song. So
man, that must have been an awesome match. I would have definitely like to see that, man, because I know that y'all definitely like pretty much tore it down there.
all we just had, honestly, we had just a lot of fun in that match. I just remember we did some goofy stuff, but we had a blast.
Yeah, and you even got to face like even as a singles competitor, you faced. Of course, you had ACH, you had Kevin Steen. That was a funny match. Um, you had Scarlett Bordeaux as your valet, and
Yep.
you had Marcus Kane as your manager, and Marcus Crane as your
Yeah.
manager. And I remember Kevin like almost trying to like powerbomb you. That was the AAW heavyweight match, and he was trying to powerbomb you onto that floor. Luckily, he didn't. He didn't get to, and then he was going to do it again, but he just powerbombed you onto the apron.
Yep.
And that was Kevin Steen is a hilarious guy. Like on the indies, he's a
He
totally different.
knows. he he has like he knows the pulse of the crowd. Like he is a true professional wrestler. Like he will just feel the crowd and just feed off them. And that's why when he got signed and has done as well as he has, it has not surprised me because he's so damn good. Like he deserved it. Like when he won the Universal title the first time, I was like so freaking stoked for him. I was like, yes, this is awesome. But yeah, the guy is a, a complete professional, so good. Um, there's not many that I've been in the ring with who are as good as Kevin Steen.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that match. I enjoyed the one with you and Lewis Linden. That was another good one too as well. And yeah, I've seen you've actually, even though you've wrestled most of your matches in the Midwest, Illinois, Iowa, you've wrestled a lot of like Tommy Dreamer. You've wrestled against Vic Capri. so many. Dion Roosman's another one that I heard is an up and coming name too that you've wrestled
Yep.
against. Have you ever gotten a chance to wrestle like outside the Midwest, like on the East Coast, the West Coast, maybe
I re- I
overseas?
wrestled. Well, I was working for CZW back in 2013, and I
Okay,
was a part of the best of the best. I got to work with Tommy End, now uh, Malachi Black, and Alex Reynolds, who's now a part of the Dark Order. Like I got to work with both those guys, and we had a triple threat match, and um, I thought it was awesome. We did some really cool stuff, really different stuff. Uh, Tommy told me I was very talented, which coming from a guy who's now like a freaking star is awesome. So yeah, man, like that was a lot of my East Coast work was CZW. Um, I wrestled in Florida for the Jeff Peterson Memorial Cup, but that tournament actually was to set up the very first Evolve show that
okay.
obviously we know the story and I wasn't able to be a part of. But yeah, I mean, I've worked with Davey Richards, I've worked with Alex Shelley, I've worked with Chris Sabin, I worked with Matt Cross, um, Colt Cabana. Uh, the list can go on, man. I mean, I've worked with a lot of great guys. Obviously, Seth. We've had numerous matches against each other. Um, yeah, man. I mean, Silas Young, another guy who's amazing, so good. A guy who should be signed, a guy who should be on TV every week because he's that damn good. Like he's always been that good. He almost got a job at one point, and then it just I don't know what happened. It fell through, but Silas should be on TV. He's so damn good. Always
Silas,
has been.
if I could put somebody in the category of modern day tough man or modern day tough guy, definitely Silas Young. As a matter of fact, he's one of my dream matches I'd like to see. Silas Young versus Magnum TA. I would have loved to
Oh
see
yeah, dude.
them
Like
two go head to head.
if you could time travel and make it happen, that would be
Man,
crazy.
yeah, that man, and the man knows how to like. He knows how to work a crowd. He knows how to like speak on the mic and everything. I
Oh
loved
yeah.
his work he did with the Tate twins and Sky Dalton Castle. I almost called him the Peacock guy. Dalton Castle. I
Yeah.
love that feud that they had. I will never forget that. And yeah, Silas was definitely one of those guys that I enjoyed watching in Ring of Honor. I was hoping he would have got the world title soon, but who knows?
Right.
Yeah.
Time
So
can
you,
tell, man. Only time can tell.
yeah. So you were, at one point you were also the assistant coach for um, the Black and the Brave.
Yes.
And how was that? How was that? How was that for you? Like coaching the next generation of pro wrestlers in the Midwest area.
It's something to be proud of. Um, like I said, pro wrestling doesn't owe me anything, but I feel like I owe pro wrestling a lot. It has made me the person I am today. Honestly. Um, so to be a part of that, and some of these kids had even grown up watching us wrestle. Connor Braxton, his second day of training, he's like, "Well, I used to watch you guys wrestle when I was 10." I was like, "What? What?" And then I just keep forgetting about how long we had been doing it. And it's just wild to think about like how young a lot of these students who are coming in and like they were like, "Well, I used to watch you at this show and that show and this show." And it's just crazy. Like it's awesome to be a part of it. And technically I'm not a part of the school, but when those students come out of Black and the Brave, they start working for SCW Pro, and I feel like if they have confidence in this student, I'm the finishing school. They put them in the ring with me. So it's one of those things that I feel like I'm still a part of the school, even though I'm not. I go down there a lot. I still roll around with the students and do a lot of work with the students, even though I don't technically work for Black and the Brave anymore. So I still not actually working there. I still am a part of those students learning, their craft. I'm the finishing school, I'd say.
Awesome. That's great to hear that that you're actually still, putting in a hand to train, those men and women there. And I gotta say, man, I'm not saying this just because you're in front of me and you're on the show, whatnot, but I have been thoroughly impressed with the students I've seen come out of Black and the Brave. I mean, one guy who I really hope I would love to get him on this show, Trip Jordy. I kind of call him the hybrid because he trained at the Black and the Brave, but he also trained at the Nightmare Factory. And
Oh, okay.
I would have loved to get a video reaction of him seeing his two trainers, Cody and Seth, fight.
Oh,
That would have
yeah?
that would have
Yeah.
actually,
That
funny thing. Two of his schoolmates from Nightmare Factory, they put up a meme that had Cody and Seth in a ladder match. Winner gets to take custody of Trip Jordy, and had Trip Jordy's face in the middle. I'm
that's
like,
awesome.
you guys are something else. But
That's
yeah,
awesome.
and as a matter of fact, when the latest angle that they did where Seth attacked Cody from behind after their recent match, he was actually one of the paramedics. I was like, wow, okay, that's pretty awesome. He got to actually be there for that last
That is
attack.
cool.
Yeah.
That is cool.
Y'all have like a lot of impressive people. You had this one girl, BB Ryan, who I saw, huge powerhouse. Women's wrestling. Oh man, they better watch out for her. Definitely a talented woman. And yeah, y'all just killing it with, like, the students y'all produce and so on. Even Zicky Dice came from y'all school, and he's
Yep.
killing it right now.
He's blown up. Uh, I think there's a lot of potential in a lot of these new students. One who, my first singles match back in AAW, Conan Lycan debuted that night on that same event. Well, not the alive events that they do, but the actual AEW event. He wrestled Silas Young and tore it down. It was awesome, and like he's gonna blow up. Heather Reckless, like these students. I mean, Jossie, these guys. There's so much that's going on right now with these students, and they're so good. Steve Manders, like these women and ladies came out of Black and the Brave, and they're taking over the business. It's awesome.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing more because every time somebody comes out, for some reason, like when certain people come out of a certain school, they have this like glow about them that you could tell, like, yo, they came from the Black and the Brave. That's why they're so like crisp in the ring. They came from that school, kind of like back in the day when you had the hard dungeon. Like
Yep.
almost anybody that came out of there, or pretty much anybody that came out of there, could have definitely main evented WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Like, that's just my opinion. That's the kind of vibe I get from Black and the Brave. Y'all are definitely one of those schools that I see with that kind of like aura coming from them, and that's a great thing.
It's ran very old school, which is great because Merrick is just an amazing coach. And obviously Seth, when he's there, he's got the knowledge of all knowledge, where he's been and what he's done. Like, and then Matt Mayday, Crotch. Matt knows how to captivate a crowd. He knows how to work a crowd better than a lot of these guys coming into business. And he's not doing a million moves, man. Like, he doesn't have to do a million moves. He can stand out, do his own thing, and it's over, and it works every time. So, like, you were learning all of the aspects of pro wrestling that you could possibly want to learn. And then, like, sometimes I'll come down there and like bring a different perspective as well. Um, it's just, I think, to me, it's hands down the best place to train to be a pro wrestler in the Midwest, bar none. I mean, I don't care who you think you are. There's no better place. Okay, hang on. Maybe Truth Martini. Truth Martini, he's pretty damn good, and he's trained a lot of good wrestlers. But I think Black and the Brave just has the best different flavors of learning different things that you could learn in pro wrestling. If you ask me, in my opinion, I think it's the best place to train to be a pro wrestler in the Midwest. Maybe even in the United States. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah. So if you had some, so what advice would you give somebody that said, hey, you know something? I want to train at the Black and the Brave. I like what y'all are doing. Y'all students are crisp in the ring. I want the same training you gave those students. What advice would you give that man or woman that wants to go that route?
The thing about with a lot of these students that have come to the school is like really what it comes down to is how much do you really want it? And if you want it that bad, you have to put in the work, period. Because these guys are not going to be light on you. Because being light on you doesn't teach you anything. You need to be ready to focus and do what they tell you to do, and be ready to do it a bunch of times. And even outside of the school, if you can't get something figured out, figure it out. Because if you just give up, are you really giving up on your dream or was it not really your dream? Like a lot of people think it's their dream, they get there, they start doing stuff and they realize that it wasn't. And it's like, well, you're wasting your time, you're wasting other students' times. If you want this, do it. Do it. Put the time in, put the effort in, work hard because nothing worth having in life is easy. Like if you want it, it's hard work. You got to put the hard work in. And like there was times where I was lackluster. I'll still say it. Like there were times that I didn't put in the hard work and it showed. So I tell students, do as I say, not as I've done. So put the work in. Do it. I mean, obviously there are people who can come out of the school and become stars. Just do it.
Awesome. So for those of you listening that actually want to go ahead and join the Black and the Brave Wrestling, and I'll even go ahead and say for those of you that just want to get into pro wrestling, period, you just got some advice from an 18-year vet here. 18-year vet that has wrestled, as I said before, people like Kevin Steen. He shared the ring with people like ACH, Tommy Dreamer, Colt Cabana, etc., etc. A lot of greats. You just got that in from you. You just got some advice from somebody of that caliber, from a man of that caliber. So just remember that. Anything else you want from him, you probably got to go to a session or maybe hit him up, PayPal, whatever, and he'll hook you up. But you just got some advice from an 18-year vet. So I just got two more questions before I shut it down. My second to last question is, you know, where do you see yourself? Well, not where you see yourself, but are there any promotions that you're looking to hit up in the near future? Because like when I mentioned like to my friend Chris Cartwright, shout out to my friend Chris Cartwright, that I was having Shane Hollister on the show. He's like, oh yeah, he was in FIP. And I was like, wow, okay. Well, and he sounded like hell excited. But what are some promotions you're looking to hit up in the near future?
Um, I really just want to hit up the biggest promotions in the independents and like show them that, you know, what they might have been missing in the last 18 years that they could have had, you know. But this time around, I just feel like I'm in a happier place in my life. Um, like I actually genuinely love pro wrestling and love like I get like that butterfly feeling in my stomach again. Like it's one of those things that like it just sometimes at one point when you don't love something, it kind of goes away, which is disheartening. But at this point, I want to work for every huge company. I mean, I'll work for GCW. I'll work for. I want to work for. Well, I don't even know if Pro Wrestling Gorilla is still going. I want to work for Pro Wrestling Gorilla. I've always wanted to work for them. Um, I want to work, and I really truly want to work for AEW. Maybe get my face flashed on TV. Have my son be proud of his dad. My daughter be proud of their dad. Like that's kind of the place I want to be right now. Like I really think that it's something that it's got its finger on the pulse. It's still new. Like you can pick apart things that you may not like about it, but it's doing it's doing good business right now for a reason, and it's a place that I want to be, and I feel like I would love to be a part of that when it really truly even blows up more than it is right now, and it's blowing up. But I think when it finds its real, like, it's just there, it's in the pocket, it's ready to blow up, and like I feel like it's blowing up, but then it's gonna explode. Like the stuff with New Japan, this is huge for pro
Oh,
wrestling fans in
mhm.
the United States. This is gigantic. And like that to me is like that opens the floodgates because to work for AEW and then go work for New Japan Pro Wrestling in Japan would be the ultimate dream come true for me. Honestly, I think that right now AEW is the place to be because it's opening up the floodgates for not only pro wrestlers but pro wrestling fans.
Yeah, and to me, I think they're a huge morale booster because back in, I mean, let's be honest, before AEW, independent wrestlers didn't really get a lot of, they didn't really get a lot of exposure. I mean, yeah, you might see one or two on an episode of Raw, but the fact that they actually have, let's say, for example, Shane Hollister's on AEW Dark tonight. Yes, granted, yes, AEW Dark, it's on YouTube, but guess what? They give you a whole photo shoot like picture and they put
Yeah,
you in a graphic against one of their signed talent. So that says a lot. They're like, well, damn, I'm not signed. I'm just on the indies and they're doing this for me. That's a bit of a that makes you actually want to stay in, you know.
yeah,
Um kind of like, and when I think of that, I think of, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but what I do with this podcast, like, I'm the kind of guy, like, for example, you're probably not gonna believe me, but when I heard of Seth Rollins being in a tag team, great tag team, Black and Brave, I was like, okay, we know Seth Rollins is doing his thing. What about Marek Brave? I want to know what Marek Brave is doing. I don't want, not because, but I'm curious. I'm that guy that, I don't know if you're familiar with Wham, but yes, I would interview George Michael, father figure,
yeah.
Monkey,
Oh yeah.
uh, Faith of the guy that, all those hits he's
Yep.
had. But at the same
Yep.
time, I want to know what Andrew Ridgely's doing. I want to know what's going on with him. How's he been?
Yes. Yes.
So when I saw Marek Brave, I'm like, okay, I hope Marek Brave actually answers. I know. Boom. He said, all right, yeah, I'll be on your show. And then I saw that he was in a tag team with Shane Hollister. So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. First off, by the way, your name sounds pretty badass. Hollister, man, I would not want to cross a man with that name. But I was like, Shane Hollister, okay, I wonder what he's doing. Let me go and hit him up. Boom. And now here we are, and what I try to do with this as well is not just to interview people, but to give those that haven't had a chance to tell their story a bit of a morale booster, whether it's referees, promoters, pretty much those that make the wrestling world, that also make the
Work.
wheel of wrestling, as I call it, go round, aside from the pro wrestlers. So when I see AEW doing things like that, I'm like, wow, that's pretty awesome that they're doing that too. They actually keep inspiring me too as well. So with what I do, so yeah, they're doing pretty good business, and yeah, really hope you get that chance to be on their show and show them what you got. Tony, if you're listening, man, I know you like your XWB guys, but yo, give these men a chance, man. Trust me, you will
there's
not regret it.
there's there's just these unsung heroes that people just forget about sometimes, and like I mean I know so many guys that should just be making a living off pro wrestling. So many dudes who are so good. It's just sometimes timing and stuff like that. But like it's something that if you're I mean, yeah, okay, if you're just a WWE fan, okay, totally understand. That's your thing. But if you're a pro wrestling fan, you owe it to yourself. If you've never been to an independent pro wrestling show, go to the best one in your region, the best one in your area that you can hear about, you read about. Go check it out. Go see that the unsung heroes, these unsigned talents that are killing it everywhere. Like these like I said, these unsung heroes, like just destroying, having killer matches, and like you'll go to a show and you're gonna walk out of there going, "Wow, that dude is so good." Like maybe it's just one guy in your head. You're like, "That dude is so good," and like it's awesome. Like it's fantastic. Like go support your local independents as well. Like these guys you'll never know who's gonna be the next WWE superstar, the next AEW pro wrestling star. You never know. Keep
Okay.
watching pro wrestling. Go to independent shows. Find out that there's more out there than just what is on television. There's so much more out there.
I'll also go ahead and I'll also go ahead and say as I've been saying this since our first season 3 years ago, and even if you're going to the indies in your local areas, check out the ones that are in other areas. I mean, you have Fight TV, you have IWTV, you have YouTube. You know, when I was stationed in Japan, I was watching the West Coast Wrestling Connection. I was watching Championship Wrestling from Arizona, and my residence is here in New York. And I'm watching stuff in like Georgia from Georgia and all over. So I mean, you know, it's always good to check out what's going on in the other areas just to see who's going to be the next big thing from there too. Yeah,
Wrestling is just at your fingertips. It's everywhere. Like you said, there's apps, there's everything. Just check it out, man. Like it's worth it. If you love pro wrestling, check it out. Like it's amazing thing. There's a reason that pro wrestling has been around as long as it has. And little do people know, the second longest traveling performance art in the world besides the circus is pro wrestling. That's
awesome.
no joke. That's some history right there. I don't know if it's been said, but it is true. You can look it up.
Yeah, I think your PT Barnum was the one that was behind that too, right?
Yeah, I mean, like they were pro wrestling became a part of the circus scene, and that's why it's so funny that a lot of wrestlers, when you hear speak Carney, um, it was we were part of the circus. Like pro wrestling was a part of the circus at one point, and they had plants in the crowd that like made it look like you were just fighting somebody in the crowd. Like it's been around that long, and then it's just evolved and like become more, and like every part of the world has taken their version of it and changed it in some way. You know what I mean? Like lucha libre, like you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
obviously Japan's pro wrestling, like their Japanese pro wrestling, the strong style. Like it's every place has taken their part of it and just changed it in some way and made it their own. But now we have this mixing pot of everything. And it's just awesome to watch. Like it's amazing. Like to me, like going to a wrestling show and grabbing my phone in my pocket, it's like would be the last thing on my mind. Like I want to watch everything I'm seeing. Like why would I do that? Why would I take my phone out of my pocket unless I'm going to take a picture of something real quick and then put it right back in my pocket? I'm not going to downgrade somebody or record a video just to, you know, I mean, I guess record a video if you want to throw a clip up of a spot or whatever in a match, but like, I'm not going to downgrade anybody ever because I love this business. I'm not going to like crap on anybody. To me, that's just how I feel. Will I walk up to you and give you I might critique your match, but yeah, you might not care about my opinion, but I might walk up to you if I care about you, like one of the students or a friend, you know. But again, that's just my opinion. Like I'm not gonna blast it on the freaking internet and downgrade anybody. It's just not that's not my thing. I don't know. I guess I respect the business too much to downgrade or take away from somebody who's performing.
yeah, that's a great philosophy that you definitely have. I wish more fans would have that. Just go to the show and just chill out. Don't deconstruct wrestling. Wrestling is made to be enjoyed. Sit down, watch. If you
It,
don't like something that they're doing, just walk away. I mean, just go watch something else. You know?
right. Or just
Yeah.
watch it. I mean, it's like, dude, you go to a movie and there's a scene in a movie and you're like, oh my gosh, it's just too much. Like if you're not in a dialogue or whatever, there's just too much dialogue going on right here. This is boring. You know what I mean? Just watch it. Just watch it because obviously you paid your money.
Yeah.
You know, you go watch a movie, you have to sit there and watch it. You can't just pull your phone out. Just enjoy it. Go along for the ride. Be lost. Get away from real life every day. Because sometimes real life isn't so fun. I mean, have a blast, have fun. That's what pro wrestling's about. Pro wrestling is about fun. You get lost in the story. Could be dramatic too, but have fun. Be lost in it. Just embrace it. Put your phone in your pocket. Love it. Just watch it. That's all I'm saying.
So my last question, you have I know you have a few, you have a couple more years, you have a couple more good runs in you. Who are your top five opponents that you want to wrestle in the near future? I know you've wrestled a lot of greats, but who are some that, you want to see go one on one with the New World Man?
The number it's funny because the number one on my list is John Moxley. John
Okay, wow.
Mox is Me and Mox were on a lot of shows together. Never had a chance to actually work with one another. I can say that I'm pretty positive we've never got a chance to actually work with each other. Um, but Mox is one of the guys that he's number one on my list. I want to work with John Moxley, and then obviously his buddy and you know uh Daniel Bryan up there too. Just these those guys are just amazing in the ring. There's a reason that William Regal is attached to those guys. Just saying.
Mm.
But like those guys, um, I would love to be in the ring with CM Punk. I mean, I don't know, that's a stretch probably, but Samoa Joe, I was another guy that I grew up watching like when I was, teenager watching him in Ring of Honor. The list goes on of like Ring of Honor guys, and then John Moxley is number one on my list because we were on shows together, and I never ever got to work with him. We even roomed together when we were doing FIP Jeff Jeff Peterson Memorial Cup, and we never got to actually work with each other one on one. So it's something that I would love very much.
Oh, well, honestly, I hope you get to definitely make all that happen. I know that both y'all both you and your opponents, y'all gonna bring y'all on because after, like I said, after I saw you and Lewis Linden, and then I saw the Kevin C match, I'm like, yo, Shane Hollister is no joke. The man can hold his own. You know, the man is not a former two-time AAW heavyweight champion for nothing. The man can go. So I definitely hope that you definitely get that opportunity. And like I said, I'm gonna speak it into existence. When I see you and Marek, when I see y'all get your opportunity on AEW, I'll definitely be cheering y'all on. I'm like, yeah, they finally did it. They get
It'd be
next.
awesome if it'd be awesome if we went and did it as a tag team.
Hey, I'd love to see an I Guys reunion.
Yeah. Well,
Definitely
it wouldn't
wouldn't
be
mind.
I boys anymore. It'd be like I dads. Let's just call us I dads.
I Guys. There you go. Yeah. But Shane, I gotta say, man, yo, real talk, thank you very much. It's an honor to speak to you. Thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to, just shoot the breeze about your career in pro wrestling. And I'll also say this, 18 years, man, if you haven't heard this before from any fans or anybody else in pro wrestling, you're gonna hear it from me first. Or if you've heard it before from, fans before, and if you've heard it before from other fans, but you're gonna hear it from me for the millionth time. You know, thank you for all that you've given us, all the matches and memories that you've given us fans. Thank you for the 18 years, and I hope your career goes. Um, I hope you get to meet all your career goals, and you get to travel the world and whatnot.
Man, that's actually really appreciated. I haven't had a lot of people actually thank me for it. That means a lot to me. Very humbling. Um, yeah, man. Like I just, at this point, it's it's just the sky's the limit, man. Like I'm ready for whatever pro wrestling wants to throw at me. I'm getting a shot at the tag titles in AEW tomorrow night. It's been a long time since I've been an AEW tag champion, so let's see if it can happen.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, this is gonna be reign number 2, man.
I sure
Yeah.
hope so.
So before I shut it down, man, where can fans find you on social media? Before we shut the show down, where can fans find you on social media when they want to find out where your next appearance is, purchase Shane Hollister merchandise, and where can bookers and promoters find you when they want to book you for their shows?
Um, well, mostly is my Facebook. Shane Hollister is the name. And then would be my Twitter, which is the underscore Shug SHUG. That's where you can find me. Merchandise is still up and coming. I have a lot of ideas. It's just again like the time and finding the right artist for a lot of things that I want to do. But I do have a lot of ideas. I do have my own podcast. It's goofy and it's fun. If you are a wrestling fan, a metal fan, or a horror movie fan, it's called Wrestling with Music in Life. We just did our 13th episode last Sunday, and then it was released 2 days, 2 or 3 days later. So yeah, that's the places where you can see me, hear about my shows and my scheduling and stuff like that. So yeah, Facebook, my podcast, and Twitter.
So y'all definitely give this man a follow. He's doing great things in pro wrestling. He has a podcast. I'm gonna check out his podcast too. I always tell y'all it's always good to check out different podcasts because everybody has their own different opinions on certain topics. So definitely go ahead and check it out. And also, if he's at your local promotion, definitely check him out, man. He's definitely a talented guy. And I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it, cop the merchandise. If you can't,
Yes,
go to the matches he's at. Another way to support indie wrestling or your favorite indie wrestler, you know, purchase their merchandise. It's always a
for
great
sure.
feeling. That way, when Shane Hollister gets signed to WWE, or Shane Hollister becomes All Elite, he gets signed by AEW, and then some fan comes up to you and says, "Hey, I got the new Shane Hollister shirt from Shop AEW, or I got the new Shane Hollister shirt from WWE Shop." You'd be like, "Man, if you don't get out of here with that, I got his shirt from when he was on the Indies, man. What you know about that? I'm a real."
Yeah, there you go. There you
It's
go.
always a
Something to be
great,
proud of.
yeah, it's always a great feeling to support somebody, from the beginning of the journey up until up when they reach the top. So support indie wrestling, cop the merchandise, and that's all I'm gonna say about that. But with that being said, it's about time for me to shut this show down. For us, shut this show down. My eyelids are getting a bit heavy. My stomach is rumbling. That means it's time for dinner and a nap. Maybe not in that order, but before I actually indulge in those activities, if y'all want to find me on social media, you can find me on Twitter at the Remy Blue. You can also find me on Facebook as Remy Blue, and I'm also on Instagram at the Remy Blue as well. There, feel free to add me on those platforms. However, our podcast is also on social media. We're on Twitch at Ringside Society 2019, Twitter and Instagram at Ringside Society. We have a Facebook group. Guess what? It's called Ringside Society, and we're also on Blog Talk Radio, Spotify, and YouTube. Yes, and that's where we actually have a lot of cool interviews like this one, like the one we had with Marek Brave, and also people like Katie Hebner, Inevitable Michael Martinez, um, Kayla Sparks, and many other great people in the wrestling industry. So make sure you check us out on YouTube. Once you see that dark blue and light blue yin yang sound with the blue flames around it, that's when you know it's us. So make sure you subscribe to all of our videos because we got a lot of cool stuff coming up, and you don't want to miss a thing like Aerosmith in 1998. But with that being said, I just want to thank everybody tuning in tonight live. Thank you very much. We try our best to bring you some of the best wrestling content on here. Those y'all that are gonna listen to us later on, thank you very much in advance. And those y'all that hate us, can't stand us, really and truly wish we'd go away. Well, like myself for the Golden Corral, we're not going anywhere for a while. But with that being said, we just want to let everybody know that we here at Ringside Study, myself and my two co-hosts that couldn't be here, Rob and Kathy, are very well aware that everybody and their grandparents and their parents have a podcast. But we're not your grandparents' podcast. We're not your parents' podcast. As a matter of fact, we're not just any podcast. So I'm gonna say it one time for the mind, one time for the people, one time for the wrestling culture, and one time for former two-time AAW heavyweight champion, former AAW heritage champion, and former AAW tag team champion, the New World Man, Shane Hollister, with the Wrestling Fans Podcast, Ringside Society. And with that being said, we will be back this weekend with more impressive episodes, with more impressive guests. But until then, we just want you to do 4 favors for us. Stay safe, stay healthy, be excellent to each other, and party on, dudes. We out. Peace.